Good morning, everyone. My name is Ron Dorsey. I serve as the Chief Impact Officer at the Eastern Bank Foundation and am one of the founding members of the Massachusetts Early Childhood Funders Collaborative. Welcome to the launch of EC 101. Before we begin, I'd like to thank the members of the Massachusetts Early Childhood Funders Collaborative, the team at the Rennie Center, and the many partners who informed the development of this innovative tool. At no time in life do we develop more rapidly than from birth to age 5. This is a time full of incredible physical, cognitive, linguistic, emotional, and social growth. The quality of children's experiences in these years significantly impacts their future success, future health, and future well-being. That said, the experiences of children in these early years vary drastically due to a lack of access to high-quality developmental opportunities and ineffective communication across provider settings, governing agencies, and support organizations in the field, and certainly across the systems beyond early care and learning, from health to social services, to housing support, to employment assistance. Some might say that the narrower early education and care space, despite our ability to point to the places where care is provided, to see learning happening, and to describe the services that are financed and how they are regulated, is a system that is not a system. It may be better described as a constellation whose patterns are not easily perceptible. Mostly privately provided programs, partially subsidized services, in school and out of school, possessing minimal connective tissue and afforded too few of the resources required to fully and consistently deliver on the field's proven potential. The fragile and tenuous connections within and beyond traditionally recognized early childhood systems compromise our ability to fully support the Commonwealth's youngest residents and creates significant equity issues. And when we lose sight of equity imperatives, we fail to prioritize the children and families whom we rarely privilege, and we perpetuate structures that fuel racism, classism, gender discrimination, and all forms of exclusion. If we are to exalt children in the ways that we claim, we have to build systems that center them, that are culturally proficient, that are well-resourced, that honor and fairly compensate workers, and that are intentionally designed for family and community thriving. In order to do this, we need a better shared understanding of our legacy systems, of the components and structures that do and do not match our vision and aspirations. EC 101 was born out of a need for clearer perspective and common language. To the former point, EC 101 seeks to take a full frame view that does not just focus on the important worlds of policy and public administration or even service provision, but on the universe of children's developmental experiences, their family lives and community contexts, as well as the full spectrum of agencies, programs, providers, policies, and regulations that are, or perhaps should be, brought to bear on their success. By providing clearer perspective, this interactive map will demystify the early childhood field and make sense of a complex collection of elements that we need to further shape to guarantee children's safety, early literacy and numeracy, early health, and future school success. EC 101 will provide needed common language that allows us to locate and orient ourselves in early childhood's complex universe. It will provide language that helps us to develop more precise descriptions of the challenges to be solved, and it will serve as the basis for clearer, better aligned aspirations and more fully articulated solutions. It is intended to be a starting place for collective vision and action within the field. As more attention and energy builds on the importance of the early years, we hope EC 101, with its clarifying and uniting power, makes it plain what you and I, policymakers, advocates, and funders, among others, are required to do to guarantee all children the start in life that they deserve. Thank you again for being here this morning. And now please welcome the director of the Massachusetts Early Childhood Funders Collaborative, Brian Gold.
Thank you so much, Ron, for that phenomenal introduction and warm welcome. As Ron said, I'm the director of the Massachusetts Early Childhood Funder Collaborative, and we're so thrilled to have you all join us for the world premiere of EC 101. Everyone here today is already doing so much to support young children to work towards that future that Ron described. And let's continue to build and broaden that strong, supportive early childhood community. Thanks to everyone who's already put their name and organization and role in chat. And if you haven't already, please do so. And to help build community, we've got a brief poll that we'll launch. As you're doing that, a little bit about the Funder Collaborative. We're a statewide group of over 30 individuals and philanthropies with the vision that all young children in Massachusetts have the opportunities and supports they need to grow and thrive. To do that, we work collectively to influence policy and systems change across sectors and systems that impact children prenatal to age 5, including health, education, and much more. We provide a forum to exchange knowledge and expertise and work to build awareness of the importance of the early years and the early childhood space, and identify gaps, levers, and strategic opportunities, as Ron mentioned, with the goal of driving growth and coordinated investment. As a provocation for the EC 101 tool, we asked, a child is born in Massachusetts, then what happens? Each of us knows some part of this. Each of us here today has some form of expertise, parenting, teaching, leading, facilitating, developing policy. But I'm not sure that anyone, including myself, knows the full story. And while I won't be so bold as to say that what you'll see today will tell that, our hope is that it'll provide a strong framing, a high-level overview across sectors, across systems, providing that foundational knowledge, especially to policymakers, leaders, and funders, as we move to what Ron referenced, a system that is family-driven, family-centered, especially for those who historically have been not centered. We may not know the full story, but we do know how we want to answer the question. A child is born in Massachusetts, and then what happens? We want to answer it with, they grow and thrive. Let's make that a reality. I've been in the early childhood space for over a decade after careers in multiple areas. I spent 6 months quietly listening, learning, and soaking up all I could to make sense of this world, brand new to me with no prior knowledge. I was extremely fortunate to have firsthand access to leaders in the field and countless expert teachers and coaches to help me with my journey, some of whom I'm fortunate to share the virtual stage with today, and others in the audience. Yet it's really through my own lived experience, first as a former short-term foster parent, and now as the father to a 15-month-old daughter, navigating her world to help her grow and thrive, that I've been able to understand and make sense of much of the early childhood space. As we designed EC 101, we kept that in mind. What would help policymakers, funders, community, and state leaders drive impactful change to help young children grow and thrive? We think it's in the common language and understanding of the current early childhood space that this tool provides, understanding our current context, and helping them be able to have a robust discussion about the question, a child is born in Massachusetts, and then what happens? Building that common language and foundation requires demystifying jargon. So I want to reemphasize that when I say early childhood, I'm including every system and support that impacts a young child, not just education, not just health, but the entire universe. EC 101 is designed to be a foundational building block to help identify not just gaps, but points of leverage and opportunity. You'll hear about one current use of the tool later. Throughout this morning, as you hear and learn, please engage with us and everyone here in the chat. EC 101 is a funder collaborative supported project, and I'd like to take a moment to thank our funders, the Boston Foundation, the Commonwealth Children's Fund, Greater Lowell Community Foundation, Eastern Bank Foundation, the Hogan Charitable Foundation, Paladin, the Roger and Lisa Krakoff Family Fund, the Irene E. and George A. Davis Foundation, and the United Way of Massachusetts Bay and Merrimack Valley. It's a true early childhood funder collaborative mix of philanthropies across the state, with particular thanks to the Commonwealth Children's Fund for helping to co-lead the project. I also want to thank our members, both funders and members of our Community Advisory Committee, for helping to develop and score our RFP, which led to this engagement with the Rennie Center. I'm deeply grateful for all your support and guidance. And a special thank you to the Rennie Center and to Ellie Jansen as project manager for taking our spark of an idea to what you'll see in just a few minutes. As I mentioned, our hope is that this will engage policymakers, legislators, funders, and everyone here to action, to equitable systems and policies that not only support young children and their families, but center them, ensuring that their basic needs are met. I'm thrilled that we have one such legislator with us today who, while not only leading the Massachusetts House and driving systems change for young children throughout the Commonwealth, is a fellow father of a toddler and has helped to build the robust community of support for our youngest residents in his district. Adrian Mattero is the Massachusetts State Representative for the 1st Suffolk District, which comprises the neighborhood of East Boston. He currently serves as the House Chair of the Joint Committee on Mental Health, Substance Use, and Recovery, where he helped usher the most comprehensive reform to mental health care in Massachusetts in decades through an act addressing barriers to care for mental health, which includes measures to improve access and supports for children facing mental health challenges. As a new father, Representative Mattero introduced bold legislation to create a universal early education and care program in Massachusetts, working in concert with child care providers, early educators, and business leaders. Representative Mattero, welcome. We're very happy to have you here to share a few words with us as we launch EC 101.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be here, and thank you for having me and inviting me to speak today. Really incredible to join so many friends and advocates, and what a fantastic turnout. There's a couple hundred of us on this call, which I think just underscores what an important issue this is and how passionate we all are about seeing investments in early education and care. I want to give a special thanks to Elle, Ron, and Brian for setting the stage with your remarks. Once again, my name is Adrian Mattero. I am the state representative from East Boston. And as Brian mentioned, I'm a proud father to my beautiful 20-month-old son, actually, Mateo, soon to be a father of 2. My wife and I are expecting our second child at the end of next month. So we'll be doing the 2 kids under 2 juggle. So that should be quite an adventure. And the journey thus far has been pretty informative. And incredible as well. My wife and I actually met in a child development class, and we were both majors. So this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. And while neither of us actually ended up going into child development, we both got to put our degrees to good use 20 months ago when we welcomed Mateo into our lives. And, certainly while school taught us a lot, Brian noted this as well. There's just some things you can only learn by being a parent. And one of those things is how necessary and how complicated and challenging childcare is. Now, we all know that the first few years of a child's life significantly shapes the foundation for their future. Yet, far too many families struggle to find the resources to provide quality education and care for our youngest residents. Now, part of the problem is that resources are really fractured and complex, and it can be extremely difficult for policymakers, never mind parents, to fully understand the early childcare field and what's available. So knitting together the different systems at play is really critical to ensure that not only the basic needs of families with young children are met, but that those kids also thrive. The EC 101 tool is a great way to piece together the various resources and facets of the journey that young children and their families take in the first 5 years of life. But folks, this tool fits into the bigger picture. Early childhood requires more energy, more investment, and more collaboration. Unity across the various early childhood systems and stakeholders is essential to creating a world where these resources and supports are accessible to everyone. In my neighborhood of East Boston, the Every Child Shines Collaborative, which is run through the East Boston Social Centers, really a cornerstone nonprofit in my community, is a great example of community-driven action where our neighborhood is building a comprehensive cross-sector early childhood system so that all East Boston children can enter kindergarten joyful, thriving, and ready to learn. Early childhood education and care helps children reach their full potential and helps parents remain in the workforce. But for that to happen, every family needs to have access to these essential services and supports. However, early childhood education and care is often completely inaccessible due to high childcare costs, lack of high quality program seats, and the high stress of navigating the search for programs. Massachusetts ranks the #1 state in the nation behind only Washington, D.C. for the most expensive childcare. That is astounding. Last session, I filed the Common Start bill in the legislature to work towards universal early education and care throughout Massachusetts. And this session, we'll be back at it again. I'm incredibly proud to be joined in this effort by so many people and organizations. The Common Start Coalition, which is well represented on this call, early childhood programs like the East Boston Social Center in my district. And I do want to give a shout out to the Social Center staff here today, parents, colleagues in government, my fellow lawmakers and elected officials, and so many other community members. There is a ton of energy behind this effort, and I'm really grateful to so many of you on this call for being such incredible advocates on this issue. Now, we made some good progress last session, and I look forward to continued partnership with you all as we push to get early education and care legislation passed and signed into law this session. And folks, there is no doubt in my mind that we have momentum on our side. Issues of early ed and care have been highlighted as priorities by our new governor, Maura Healey, by Senate President Karen Spilka, and by the Speaker of the House, Ron Mariano. Through continued collaboration with you all, I'm confident that we can get this done. I want to thank you. I want to thank so many of you for being on this call today, but more importantly, for your dedication and commitment to ensuring that the Commonwealth's youngest the Commonwealth's youngest children and their families receive the support they need, and for working so tirelessly to create an early education system in Massachusetts that works for all families. I look forward to the continued work ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Mataro, for your passionate embrace and leadership of the early childhood, of and in the early childhood space, and your call for unity and support for young children. And congratulations on your growing family. We're thrilled to hear the news. Now for the great unveil. I'm delighted to introduce Ellie Jansen, Senior Associate at the Rennie Center. Ellie has been diligently spearheading this project since it started in late 2021. Her leadership of the project is without parallel. She's been helping to shepherd along a process that's incorporated all levels of stakeholders, from parents to state policymakers. Could go on about the process and Ellie's amazing leadership, but let's hear directly from her as she walks us through. As you hear from her and as you see the site, our effort to build common language and a common foundation and understanding of the early childhood space, I want you to think about these questions. How will you use EC 101 in your own work? What ideas does this spark? And what more do you want to know? And finally, who else should see this? Who will you share it with? Ellie, take it away. Let's hit the fancy on button to turn on the website and show what you've been leading for the last year to the world.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian. And hello to all of you. It is my honor to be with you this morning for the public release of Massachusetts EC 101. As you've heard a lot today already, this really has been a team effort. And there's so many people to thank for their support and dedication, not just to this project and this work, but really to tirelessly pushing every day to ensure that all young children and families across the Commonwealth are equitably supported and are able to thrive. And so before I dive into the website and give you a sneak peek of the tool, I do want to give one last round of thanks to Brian, to Melora Balson and Lydia Icky for a great partnership throughout a year's worth of work, and to my Rennie Center team, specifically Sophie Zamaripa, who is in the audience today, without whom this project wouldn't be the success that it is. Brian mentioned earlier, but we began this journey asking ourselves a pretty simple question. A child is born in Massachusetts, and then what happens? And what came from that simple question was much more complexities and nuances to really understand the landscape of early childhood in Massachusetts. We wanted to understand the systems, supports, programs, and services that young children and families interact with in the first 5 years of life, who has access to those services and who doesn't. We wanted to really be able to demystify a bit of those complexities that we began to understand more and more, knowing that the field as it currently stands is clouded and a bit uncoordinated in its nature. And so EC 101 is an accumulation of interviews with experts, focus groups with parents, state and national research, data collection, support from a fantastic advisory committee, one of the members who you will hear from a little bit later today, and much more. And we had a variety of stakeholders offer their time to engage in a series of reviewing content, feedback cycles, engage in beta testing, all leading to this final product that you're about to see today. So when I say that it's been a collaborative journey, it really has been just that. And I want to start by saying EC 101 is just a drop in the bucket of the fantastic work that is happening in this state to build an equitable and comprehensive system of early childhood. And we hope EC 101 can be a tool to support that work and drive further investment, energy, focus, commitment to early childhood, all of which has been happening and continues to brew in a really fantastic way in this state. But most importantly, we want EC 101 to help you, to make your work a little bit easier, to bring us together as a field a little bit more, to push the needle a little further in making a systemic impact in the lives of children and families in our state. So without further ado, I'm sure you're really ready to see the website. I know I am sure ready to have it sprout its wings and enter into the world. So here we go. All right. Here is EC 101, or Early Childhood 101. When you enter into the site, you'll see this side navigation bar on the left. And this is really where it will direct you to anywhere you want to go in the site. It's also constantly here. So anytime you want to navigate to a different portion of the website, go back to something that you wanted to revisit, this is your friend, your handy friend over here. We also have an accessibility tool embedded into the site, which has a variety of options to make the site more accessible for users as they're navigating through. But here where we have right now is the homepage, or the landing page. And as we've mentioned before, we started with this question: a child is born in Massachusetts, and then what happens? And we wanted to ground the website in this question for the viewers, because as we continually did throughout the process, we were revisiting this question and wanted it to be the central thing that drives the rest of the content for the website as you navigate through it. So as you scroll down, you'll start to learn a bit about early childhood and the early years. And then you'll be directed to choose your own adventure. And so you're able to click on the different early childhood systems buckets, which after extensive research, we landed on these 4, which are health and well-being, family and caregiver supports, education and care, and community engagement. I will go into more depth of each of these buckets in a second, and we'll learn a bit more about each of these. The other option for Choose Your Own Adventure is you can continue to scroll down the page to see a family's journey beginning at their child's birth and moving through the ages. This is what we call the journey map. The journey map is really tells a story about different age groups, or perhaps a specific journey, one that might be taken in the first 5 years of life. This portion of the site was envisioned during a series of advisory committee meetings where everyone was really committed to ensuring that we were centering the voices and experiences of parents and families. So to build this portion of the website, we did just that. We held interviews with parents of young children and had them talk us through their journey from the time their child was born until their child reached 5 years old, or if they were somewhere in the middle, where they were in that moment, to really understand the different experiences and situations that they had throughout their child's growth. Embedded in the site, you'll find equity considerations, which are noted by this symbol here. And these are really call outs to potential gaps in equitable access to services, as well as call outs to systemic issues such as racism and poverty that exist and are embedded throughout the state and the field. As you scroll through the ages, each new age bucket is grounded in key developmental milestones for that age, or perhaps what development might look like for a child at this age, knowing well that the development is a journey and that no child's development looks the same, but that it's unique to each of them. Each stage of life also talks about specific services or supports or experiences that a family might face or a child might go through at that stage of life. At any point when you see blue highlighted text, you can click on that that will either show you a text tool, which will explain or define a term that might not be known, or it will link out to an external resource or somewhere else in the site to learn more about that specific topic. And same goes for every one of the age buckets as you go through the journey. So as I mentioned before, the 4 buckets that we've landed on for early childhood systems are listed here. The first being health and well-being, which are services that address the development, physical health, and mental health of young children, their caregivers, and their relational well-being. We have family and caregiver support, which are services that address the health and well-being, whether physical, behavioral, social, economic, of parents, families, and caregivers of young children. Education and care services that focus on the social, emotional, and cognitive growth of young children that take place in a setting without their parent or caregiver present. And then community engagement, which are really services that engage with young children and families embedded in their community. Now, we're talking a lot about systems, and I want to pause and stop, take a pause here to show that occasionally you'll find a systems gap listed throughout the site, and that's indicated by this symbol here. And really what these are intended to do is to show the potential gaps either within a system or across systems that exist in what Ron mentioned as the early childhood non-system. And oftentimes, all the various supports and services that you will encounter and find that exist within one of these might exist within multiple of them and are really interconnected, as can see by this puzzle graphic here. However, in reality, oftentimes these systems and supports don't interact or communicate with one another, which has led to ineffectiveness and equity issues, leaving families to have to navigate these systems independently, and those who possess higher social capital or stronger networks having the ability to navigate these more easily, and those who don't facing significant challenges. So really EC 101, part of the goal is to showcase where gaps exist so we can continue to push a little bit forward in changing that, finding those leverage points to increase access for all families. So I'm going to show you each one of these buckets, and we're going to start with health and well-being. Each bucket has, or each system has a landing page. Here it is for health and well-being. You'll always be able to find the definition of that system, as well as the core components that exist under each one of those systems. Another way that you can navigate through this system is interacting with this chart here. You can click on anything to learn more or to see what are the specific components under each one of those. At any point, you can hover over and see a small definition or synopsis, as well as a button to click to learn more, which will take you to its individual page. Each core component has its own page. And once you're inside of that page, you get to see all the different subcomponents that are listed here. This will allow you to navigate to any one of those spaces to learn more about that specific topic. And now we're in family and caregiver support. So the same is true here. You're able to navigate using this top bar here, or you can play around with this fun graphic to be able to dive deeper. Every one of the subcomponents has this same information on the sidebar. So you're able to see the ages that it serves, in this case, birth through 5. You'll be able to see the usage, which is either universal, targeted, or intensive. This is really to showcase who uses this service. Is it all families, some families, and the intensity of that service. And this is, again, an example of one of the highlighted blue tooltips where you can click to understand more about what that means. You'll also see geography. So is this a statewide service or a specific community in Massachusetts? The professionals who provide this service or support, setting in which it happens or settings in which it happens, oversight, guidance, or regulation, the state and national actors and agencies who support this service, fund it, and what have you. As well as oftentimes there are examples of more specific programs always linked, so you're able to click, it'll take you to outside resources so you can learn more about those programs. For certain programs, this one being Head Start, we provide program snapshots, which are indicated by this small little icon here. And this allows you to dive a little bit deeper to understand the funding source, the specific goals of the program, and impact. So these exist for certain programs such as Head Start or early intervention, and are always kind of stylized like this to learn a bit more. And last bucket, but certainly not least, in case you just need to see a smiling face on a child and have a good laugh, this page always is there for you for that. It always makes me smile when I enter this page. But this bucket showcases all the rich resources families have access to within their community. Oftentimes, these resources are the main points of access and leverage that families have to learn about services and programs available to them, as well as what healthy development looks like, connect with peers in the field through baby groups and parenting classes, and really have a robust support network within their community. As Brian mentioned, one of our main goals for EC 101 is to build common language and unify our vision and fields a little bit more. And so the glossary is intended to do just that. We've compiled many terms that are used in the early childhood field, as well as throughout the EC 101 website, and have compiled them here. So anytime there's an unfamiliar term, you can navigate to the glossary and click to see a definition or learn more. Of course, we're always improving and wanting to grow, so we've made sure to include spaces where folks can submit additional glossary terms that may be missing or that they want to see present on the website, just indicating that we really want this to be a living resource, that we want to ensure that the accurate is always up to date and accurate as we move through. And then finally, we really want EC 101 to have an impact, that this tool can be a launching point for further action, whether that be advocacy agendas or funder strategies or legislation and policy. And so through a partnership with many stakeholders, we created a vision for early childhood in Massachusetts, which boils down to a comprehensive system that equitably centers families and young children in services and systems that impact them. And so we have 9 principles that are guiding this vision. I'm not going to read them all to you now because we really hope that once we launch this site at the end of the webinar, that you'll dive into the tool, go through it yourself, learn something new, and share it far and wide with your colleagues and friends for folks who could get use out of a tool like this. But this vision really spans across all 4 of these systems buckets to see early childhood in a holistic way, from prenatal to pediatric and mental health care, to support for parents and caregivers, to screening for developmental milestones, childcare, and qualified early childhood professionals, public and private sector financial commitments, current data that is accessible, and to make sure that families and parents are central to conversations around policy and decision-making when it comes to early childhood. You'll hear a bit later from Marissa Fair, who will talk about one way this tool is already being used and the guiding principles that the early childhood agenda was really informative in creating these and is also using them in their agenda. So you'll hear a bit more about that as well. And lastly, we have a Get Involved section. We really want this to be, again, a launching point for further action. And so we've started to list some of the great work that's already happening across the state, from advocates to legislative, business, philanthropic. This is an incomplete list and short, and is continuing to being added onto, but wanted to have these here as a starting place to showcase all the phenomenal work that all of you on this call are tirelessly working towards. And of course, if you have a thought, if you have a note, if you have anything that you want to share, we're always open to hearing and want to hear from you how you're using this tool, how it's useful. So there's places to contact us at any point. All right. That is the EC 101 tool. So you've gotten to see a snapshot of it. Again, we hope that you'll dive deeper into it, share it with your friends and colleagues and folks who you really think would benefit from this tool. But now you're about to hear from Magda Rodriguez about more of the process of EC 101, how we got here. She was a part of our advisory committee and essential to the progress of this site, really supported us in thinking about how are we centering parents and families in conversations around early childhood, and specifically in this work. So I know she'll talk more about her own background and journey, as well as some of the journeys of the families that she's worked with throughout her career. Magda is Senior Director of Strategic Growth and Programming at Families First, a member of Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, Parent and Community Education and Involvement Advisory Council, and the Boston Universal Pre-K Advisory Committee. I'm sure she will talk more about her background, but with that, I thank you all. Magda, thank you so much for being with us, and I turn the floor over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Ellie. I'm so honored to be here with all of you today. First, I want to thank to the Massachusetts Early Childhood Funder Collaborative and to the Rennie Center for Education Research and Policy. I have had the privilege of being part of the advisory team that was established early last year in January to assist with the development of this incredible website that it is launched today. I'm so super excited to see it for first time. And today they have invited me to talk about the stories of my life and the many incredible families I have met during my nearly 20 years tenure working with family in the family engagement field. As all you know, parenting is not an easy task, especially if you're facing systemic racism and other type of oppressions that prevent you and your children from accessing critical services. As a young mother who had recently immigrated from Colombia, I faced many hardships. The toughest one, of course, the cold weather in Boston. I'm only partially kidding, and I will leave that story for another day. Today, I want to talk to you about how difficult it was for me to raise my two children, Gabriela and Sebastian, in a new country with limited English. Firstly, my limited English made it difficult to advocate with my children, with teachers and providers. Many times I thought that my opinions did not matter or had no value because I was an immigrant, because I was different, because I could not explain my concerns as eloquently as other parents. I felt embarrassed when people had trouble understanding me, laugh, or make inappropriate jokes about my accent. Secondly, having limited English impacted my ability to connect my young children to resources and services. I always hesitated to contact people for support and guidance for fear that others would judge me. I feared that my values and my beliefs and my culture and who I was were different and people would not understand the positions I held. And lastly, speaking limited English impacted the confidence that I have on my role in promoting my children's healthy development. The dilemma of whether to read in Spanish or in broken English stayed on my mind. I always worried so much that my children would fall behind at school. I worry that they would not be ready to learn at the start of kindergarten. I worry that they will be discriminated against for not speaking English or having a mother just like me, an immigrant. But thank God they are doing so well. Well, I'm blessed today to say that my son will graduate from Yale University this year, and my daughter will finish her first year at Emmanuel College. Sadly, the worry that I had and faced many years ago are still the same worry that many families are experiencing in Massachusetts today. We're still dealing with a broken system that prioritizes formal education and strong economic backgrounds versus the lived experiences. We're still dealing with a system that creates policies and practices without meaningfully involving the communities and families that are directly impacted by them. I'm grateful that during the process of developing the EC 101, we heard the voices of many families. The Rennie Center for Education, Research, and Policy connected with several Families First Power parents and parent leadership participants to listen to them and honor their voices and what they have to say. Thanks so much, all of you, Ellie, Brian, and everybody for really being a parent-centric. Thanks for developing this amazing tool that connects systems, and I'm sure that is going to support many families in Massachusetts and break barriers that many of us are facing today. I am very blessed to work at Families First, an organization that has been really put parents at the center. I've helped them and they hear my voice and they listen to me, even again with my accent and my broken English at the beginning. They incorporated my voices and we were able to develop incredible models. Today we have parents at the board, we have parents that have been hired, and I'm so happy that I'm part of that organization. And I want to close today with a tagline that we use at Families First. This has guided our work over these 36 years. Parents have the power to shape children's in community. Please, I urge you today to keep having conversations and working hard on including families at all levels and honor their voices and their lived experiences. I'm very honored again to be here today, and thank you so much. I'm super excited to see what will continue happening with this incredible website. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Magda. Your advocacy for parents, your deep community engagement and leadership for this project and throughout your community and with Families First are so tremendous. I think we'll all take away that parents have the power and parents need to be at the decision-making tables for what we have here. I've learned so much from you over the years and have been so thankful to have you involved in the advisory committee for EC 101. So thank you, Magda. There was a question about updating the tool and adapting for other states. And as the context for young children in Massachusetts changes, we'll of course keep the tool updated. It's important that we keep this current and that we show the current state. As for other states, we're a collaborative that's devoted to Massachusetts, but we would be happy to chat with anyone out there who might be interested in this for their own geography. Earlier, I mentioned that EC 101 is designed to be a foundational starting point to set context and provide shared language. We're thrilled that this is already happening with a very exciting event next week, in fact. To tell you more about it, it's now my pleasure to introduce Marissa Fear, the Associate Director of Research and Policy for Strategies for Children, who's been leading a really phenomenal, exciting collaborative event involving a lot of parents, providers, and leaders, community leaders. Marissa, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Brian, and thanks everyone. It's great to be here today. Strategies for Children is a Massachusetts-based advocacy policy nonprofit organization that focuses primarily on high-quality early education and childcare. However, over the past 2 years, we've stepped into more of a convening role within the state. First with our 9:30 call, and more recently with the Early Childhood Agenda, both of which I'll share more about today and how they connect to EC 101. The COVID-19 pandemic shined an important light on the early childhood ecosystem in Massachusetts and created opportunities for systemic change. The 9:30 call is a daily advocacy call for the early childhood community and began in the first few days of the pandemic. In an ever-changing context, it was essential that the people who are closest to children, to families, and to the work had a direct line of communication both to each other and to decision makers across the state. It was during these initial months that we started to see an increased need and opportunity for cross-sector collaboration. The 9:30 call also served as an orientation, mapping programs and services, building an understanding of the entire early childhood world and demonstrating how everything can fit together, highlighting the essential need for a tool like EC 101 that could provide some of that grounding foundation for those looking to gain a better understanding of the early childhood world and work towards meaningful change. So the Early Childhood Agenda, which is what I'm here to share a little bit more about, imagines, prioritizes, and builds collective action around equitable and impact-driven solutions by providing a space for the early childhood community to come together to work across sectors for better policy development. So it's really about coordinating the good work that's happening across the early childhood space. This convening relies on long-standing partnerships formed throughout Strategies for Children's 20-year history and as well as on the 930 call. It also seeks to build new relationships through a process designed to support this cross-sector collaboration and push for integrated and aligned early childhood policy. Our vision of bringing communities from across the Commonwealth together has yielded robust discussions and a long list of challenges that are faced by children and the professionals who work with young children every day. So our agenda, which we'll be launching next week, will feature 10 solutions that are generated by the early childhood community. We're not community organizers at Strategies for Children, but we have really found this space where we can be organizers of communities. So we're thinking about how we can recognize the value of diverse perspectives, lived experiences, and rely on the strengths, the content expertise, the knowledge, the relationships, and the connections of our partners. The agenda was designed to create and hold space that not only engages, but also empowers the early childhood community, because those that are closest to the work are best positioned to identify solutions that will lead to meaningful and sustained change. It's really exciting to share how we have used EC 101 so far and how we hope to use it in the future. So EC 101 and the agenda have been developing in parallel over the past few months, which provided an opportunity for strong alignment. One of our initial tasks was to think about a vision for early childhood in Massachusetts. The agenda provided feedback on that initial draft of the guiding principles and then ultimately adopted the 9 guiding principles described on the EC 101 page. It was also absolutely critical to establish a shared understanding of the early childhood ecosystem at the beginning of our process. And this was a significant challenge. We're really excited to be able to utilize EC 101 moving forward as we sort of continue this process and think about future years. The early childhood agenda required a lot of brainstorming and asked participants to examine the Birth of 5 space comprehensively. And we saw that shared language was one of the biggest opportunities, but also one of the biggest challenges. EC 101 and the glossary are a huge resource and will be super supportive for that moving forward. As the body of research around development continues to grow, as policy change is implemented and the early childhood system changes, we see language change and practice adapt. It's incredibly exciting to have a tool that we can now adapt and grow along with that. So we're really excited about the upcoming release of the early childhood agenda, and we're in the final stages of this process and finalizing the recommendations that will be featured at our release event at the Massachusetts State House on January 24th. So I will put the link in the chat, and if you're in Massachusetts, we'd love to have you join us. And then finally, I want to thank the Funder Collaborative and the Rennie Center for taking on this work. And with that, I will turn it back over to Brian.
Thank you so much, Marissa. We're so excited for the launch of the Early Childhood Agenda next Tuesday. The link is in the chat, and thrilled that the agenda has been able to use our guiding principles, our vision. This is but the first of what we hope will be many projects that use EC 101 as a foundational cornerstone. As I mentioned earlier, we want to know, what ideas does this spark? What more do you want to know about what happens after a child is born in Massachusetts, about the early childhood space, and what others should know? How will you use EC 101 in your own work? And finally, who will you share it with? We have a brief survey for you to complete for that. Please explore the website and let's share that URL now. I know that you've all been asking for it. Let's reach out and let us know what you think. Invite us to come to groups of stakeholders to talk about the importance of early childhood and use the language and framing to help drive towards a stronger, more equitable, unified early childhood system that equitably centers young children. As Ellie mentioned, on our vision page, we have a number of ongoing initiatives, engagement opportunities, and groups. If you identify or are interested in one, please explore these links. If you know of anyone who should see them, again, please send them those links. We want to hear from you. We'll put my email address in the chat, and there's a contact form on the EC 101 webpage to hear your thoughts and a survey. You'll see that link in the chat if you haven't already. I know that you're all already involved in and dedicated to supporting young children. Your participation in today's webinar bears that out. There are hundreds of you on this call. This is amazing. Thank you. This work, developing an equitable system that centers young children and families. It takes all of us and more. So together, let's work to answer that question of a child is born in Massachusetts, and then what happens with they grow and thrive, regardless of background, regardless of circumstance, they all grow and thrive. My ask to you is to take EC 101 to find your connections and your action levers, to bring more people into the work of building a strong, bright future for all our children now and to come. Let's make that aspirational answer a reality. As we close, a number of thank yous. Thank you so much to the Rennie Center for this fantastic tool, including first and foremost Ellie Jansen for her leadership and project management, Sophie Zamaripa and Chad D'Entremont, as well as Catherine Rauso, Alexis Leon, and Laura Sinelli, and to Wild Apple Design for the web design. And behind the scenes today, Clara Adamczyk and Amanda Chung from the Rennie Center, and Ajay Walton, who helps keep everything running smoothly at the Funder Collaborative. And again, to our funders. First, to Lydia Icky and Melora Balson from the Commonwealth Children's Fund for helping to lead this project with me, as well as to the Boston Foundation, the Greater Lowell Community Foundation, Eastern Bank Foundation, Hogan Charitable Foundation, Paladin, the Roger and Lisa Krakoff Family Fund, the Irene E. George and George A. Davis Foundation, the United Way of Massachusetts Bay and Merrimack Valley. And a special thank you to all the providers and caregivers here today. Thank you so much for first taking time out of your busy day, working directly with children to learn with us. And second, for all you do every day. I've said it before, I'm in awe of all you do all day, every day, to nurture our state's youngest residents, our future. Your dedication and determination is unparalleled. My hat's off to you. Thank you again to everyone for being here today for the unveiling of EC 101. Please go explore the website. Let us know what you think. Spread the word about this tool and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you all.